Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and attending the defense. I want to start with some acknowledgements and some thank yous. I have to absolutely thank the UCF Gallery staff. Thank you so much for helping me install. I also want to thank my committee, Jason Burrell, Dr. Melissa Gepper, Shannon Lindsay, and Brooke Steerdorf. Thank you for your guidance and your help through the thesis process. And through my entire grad school experience. Of course, my mom, who I could not have done without your love and support, my dad and my brother for your support as well, my family, friends, and loved ones, my third-year cohort, of course. Our community and love and friendship is the reason I did not give up on my research. And thank you to my David. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite video game. This game is a landmark game for many reasons. It's a return to the original RPG style of games, and it's a very popular game across the genre. The first 5 minutes of New Vegas, however, shows the player character getting shot in the head. Your task of taking a package to the New Vegas Strip is interrupted, and you are buried in a shallow grave. Game over. This normally should be the end of a story. Consider Arthur Morgan or Doc Holliday or any other tragic Western protagonist. A bullet in a shallow grave is a dramatic ending meant to leave the player with a sense of tragedy and dread. But in New Vegas, you, the player character, wake up. You are resuscitated by the local doctor and the robot that dug you out of your grave. Your face and head have been reconstructed. You choose your stats, adjust the appearance of your avatar, and once you step out of the house, the game begins. Fallout New Vegas is a role-playing game, or an RPG. Other role-playing games include games from the Fallout franchise, like Fallout 4 or 3, and fantasy counterparts like Baldur's Gate 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition. A role-playing game is a video game derivative of tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, where the player assumes a role in a world and makes choices that directly impact the game's narrative. Most media that people consume, like film, television, and books or written material, do not allow for the consumer to affect the story in any way. You can only bear witness to the characters and their lives and what transpires over the course of that story. Video games, especially role-playing games, require participation from their players. In addition to the role-playing games, I was most interested in games that sought to prevent the end of the world, or, very interestingly, games that continued after the end of the world. I am not alone in being obsessed with the end of the world or what happens after it. This is a common genre of media to engage with. Susan Sontag, an iconic writer and cultural critic, describes the concept of disaster as one of the oldest subjects of art. Sontag describes the appeal of disaster in science fiction films in her essay, The Imagination of Disaster, as an opportunity to participate in the fantasy of living through your own death and the death of civilization around you. It also gives the viewer a chance to project onto the main characters of the film, who are often engaging in violent and destructive behaviors, even if the film protagonists are morally good or trying to act in a way that preserves or protects other people around them. The idea of the world breaking down and being eviscerated is itself a violent thought the viewer is encouraged to engage with. It is an indulgent fantasy rooted in escapism. When Sontag describes Japanese science fiction and destruction films, however, there's an important context to acknowledge that does not exist in our Western media until after 9/11. She speaks about the mass trauma that exists within these films, like the Godzilla franchise, which is a remnant of the mass trauma of World War II and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the cultural anxiety of potential for more nuclear devastation. Sontag says, quote, "Most of the science fiction bears witness to this trauma and, in a way, attempts to exorcise it. My relationship to disaster comes from personal experience. When I was 5, a neurosurgeon and auditory expert told my parents I had a brain tumor. It was non-cancerous, but it was so large that it extended out of my skull and into my neck. It was wrapped around major auditory and facial nerves, 5 of which were cut to fully remove the tumor. By the time I was 8, the tumor was fully gone. I am now the age my mother was when I was first diagnosed, 25. In this graduate program, I did not find myself making artwork about this event, at least in any direct way. I didn't make paintings about my surgeries or the tumor. Rather, this event in my life is a context for why I am attracted to specific pieces of media, or even specific characters. This trauma provides context. It guides my hands through appropriated video game aesthetics, imagery, and through my work, I try to exercise it too. Many contemporary disaster films deal with the aftermath of disaster or of trauma. Zombie and post-apocalyptic narratives, like Fallout New Vegas, are exclusively about the world built in the after. Zizek, who is a neo-Marxist and cultural theorist, talks about in his 2012 film, The Pervert's Guide to Ideology, He specifically quotes about I Am Legend and post-apocalyptic narratives. He says, quote, "Maybe something new only emerges through failure, the suspension of proper functioning of the existing network of our lives, where we are. Maybe this is what we need more than ever today." Disaster films and media pose this question: when the systems of our world fail and the playing fields have all been wiped clean, and you're allowed to be whatever you want, what will you be? Who will you be? Role-playing games are an opportunity for me to explore those options. Even as an isolated young person, growing up, I felt different from the people around me based on my medical trauma. Role-playing games also gave me the inspiration to engage with these stories through my own language of making, art. Making art for the love of the game, my thesis, interweaves visual aesthetics from video games and associated online fan community practices with self-portraiture to reflect and process personal past medical trauma, a developmental period in online interactive environments, and showcases self-expressive fan content, which joins an underrepresented and emerging subculture to contemporary art. Working through an interdisciplinary studio practice, combining printmaking, found sticker collage, and painting refracts digital aesthetics found in online communities. I intentionally juxtapose these physical modes of making with digital subjects to examine these subjects' merits as artistic mediums. It reflects a contemporary mode of art making and acts as preservation for these communities as the digital world generationally and constantly moves forward. My love and obsession with RPGs, specifically with Fallout New Vegas, is one based in understanding of what it means to live beyond a moment of trauma. Tracking what media I'm interested in and why, as well as critically examining the ways I and others express ourselves online, continues my effort of preservation and establishing a personal archive. The title of my thesis refers to the ending of episode 1 of season 1 of the Fallout show, produced by Amazon Prime. The character of the ghoul, Cooper Howard before the bombs dropped, is pulled out of a grave and given a proposition for the last job or bounty he'll ever have to do. He remarks that a person who engages in one last job never cared enough to begin with. Their heart wasn't in it. He does this shit for the love of the game, though. There is no official financial incentive to make fan art, as there are many copyright issues when attempting to sell products of IPs that aren't your own. Fan art is a labor of love. There are many reasons to make it, but it is often first created to bring some sort of enjoyment to the artist making it. There is also a large social incentive to make fan art, which is why many people are active in fandoms. Connecting with others over a shared love of media is a key component, and for someone who grew up with little friends, it was a large component of why I wanted to be a part of them. And fan art is the way I learned how to make art. I did so in sketchbooks almost exclusively, starting around high school. I first learned of being an artist through YouTube art and speed paint videos, and if I wanted to be a real artist like them, I would need a sketchbook. I would collage stickers to make the book mine, displaying interests in media I was interested in, which started a long-standing history of my personal and professional practice of collaging. I would draw the same characters for years, which is a common fandom practice. This built up muscle memory in the physical act of drawing, which taught me how to draw, as well as the mental practice of responding to what I see and drawing from memory. The characters I was most interested in, of course, came from role-playing games. I think we should take a moment to define fandom and fan art. Fan art, as described by Merriam-Webster, is an artwork based on popular works of fiction, such as books, movies, etc., that is created by fans. A fandom is then described by the Cambridge English Dictionary as a group of fans of someone or something, especially very enthusiastic ones. Fans often traverse these digital communities through avatars that are built on personal interest or personality traits rather than physical appearance of the users. The definition here of fan art is vague. I personally define fan art as any art made that is derivative of media or inspired by another piece of media or artwork. A vague definition of fan art, like mine, includes so much art, including art made that is generally accepted in the official art canon of art history. I enjoy keeping the lines between art and fan art blurred. I believe this shows how much overlap exists between the two genres of art. Each have a distinct history and a long-standing timeline, and much of art and fan art has created a symbiotic relationship where one informs the other. This begs the very simple and easy to answer question of what is art? Art, in the way that it relates to my studio practice, is about intention. It's about the act of engaging in a larger conversation through visual creating. It also relates to whether or not I'm making something that stems from a base media, or if I'm establishing new visual iconography, which will organize it clearer into art or fan art. Many artists have a studio practice as well as a fan art practice. I've decided to merge the two in my first semester of the program. In most fan art revolving around video games, the user interface is not included, nor is the heads-up display. The emphasis instead focuses on character and environment. Saving and E-Talk Boon depict large buildings in the shape of a dinosaur that hold a tall, obelisk-like structure. The building stands over a mountain range where there are no other structures in sight. In the other painting, Boon, it depicts a man looking out over that same mountain range, this time from the perspective of the dinosaur. He holds a rifle, but the details of the gun have been whited out to match the flash in the first painting. There is more of the saving yellow layout over the image. The yellow overlay is the heads-up display. The text and symbols in yellow do not interact with the rest of the environment of the painting. It sits on top of everything and interrupts the viewer's experience with the rest of the image. It frames the painter and acts as a border. The white flash in the first painting is in the shape of a small, glittery star. These little stars are littered all over my body of work and represent a kind of decorating of space. These stars are common practice to include in fan art as a part of decoration and highlighting the character's eyes, a part of backgrounds, or just to have an interesting shape floating around. I use these to call back to other fan artists making the same marks. It's important to note that New Vegas is a single-player game. I don't interact with other people while playing this game, only the non-playable characters that are actually in the game. New Vegas and other RPGs gave me an opportunity to explore choices and world building, but I wouldn't find a community of people who also enjoyed these games until much later in my life when I started to be more active online. The user interface includes all menus and settings. So this is a screenshot of my Steam Deck, and these would be elements of the user interface. It's additional information as well as menus, settings, and direct ways the player or user interacts with the overall system. The heads-up display is additional information the game gives you. You're not directly interacting with it, but it provides valuable information when playing the game. Riker Woodward is a contemporary painter who focuses on painting early 2000s video game items, artifacts, and game stills. Woodward speaks to the global cohort of people who have participated in online gaming communities and speaks to the ways people have connected to each other through video games. He also creates or references to an alternative art history, where video game imagery and items hold as much weight as other historically important art objects. The interpretation of Woodward's work isn't conceptual. Instead, the meaning of this painting is to connect to a different art medium. Woodward's work isn't about something specific, but rather about the culture and imagery of a niche but global community. Riker Woodward's influence on my work is obvious. As someone who is looking to make paintings about video games, I look to others making paintings about video games. Woodward also has multiple paintings tackling the landscape of New Vegas. This one is of Halo, but in one later it will be of New Vegas. He includes quest markers, loading screens, and drop-down menus, which are all a part of the heads-up display. Like here are some close-ups. The inclusion of a HUD system pulls Woodward's work out of the realm of fan art and into a conversation about the literal game. Think game as a verb, not just a noun. When looking at Woodward's work, the main difference I see is in the way we've approached painting a scene from a game, or the style of painting. I've often described Woodward's work as a painterly style or an artist's interpretation of a video game. This seems like an obvious descriptor, but there's a rough handling of the paint and there's a thick quality. The artist isn't immediately concerned with the end result image and getting the details exactly correct. He's instead engaging more with the paint and the tradition of painting. I approach these paintings from a personal history of illustration and of trying to depict characters and environments with crisp details. Paint is a tool I use, not the main feature. This painting of mine, Quest Marker, also breaks the boundaries of a traditional shaped canvas by existing as a silhouette cutout of a quest marker from the game Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I'm isolating this aspect of the HUD system and pulling it out of its original context and bringing it into this reality as an example of the way I collage and combine different visual aesthetics. Normally, the HUD system fades to the background in a player's mind. Players become used to the information and the moment of these icons. My intention with these cutouts, specifically the quest marker, is to draw back attention to these moments of information. I use acrylic paint across my studio practice as a way to cement my painting in the contemporary canon. Acrylic is a tool that is much younger than oil painting, but it still connects my work to the traditional ritual of painting. I also use gouache for smaller details to achieve a flatter layer of color. I add dimensionality back into the paintings through repeated and multiple layers of flatness and color washes, which in turn creates depth again in the piece. The process and the act of layering is crucial to my work. This specific quest marker is unique, as in-game it is only displayed on walls or doors the player is meant to go through. As such, I only display this piece on doors. Audiences who recognize this icon engage with it immediately. They understand that this specific quest marker exists with specific rules of engagement. The companion cube is the second cutout I made. Instead of an element of the HUD, this is an object from the game Portal and Portal 2. The perspective on this cube is also wrong. I chose a distorted perspective to create a strange viewing experience. This cube does not exist in the real world, so it shouldn't exist to our rules of physics. cutouts are created after I used a collage on top of my paintings, as seen in this configuration we'll talk about a little bit later. Collages quickly became a greater theme and artistic practice in my work, especially through my baby girl collage series. So what is a baby girl? Thank you for asking. A baby girl is a vague term that is used to describe fictional male characters. While there is no set-in-stone definition, it often describes as, according to the USA Today show, someone who is over 25, cutesy in a submissive way, has a bad boy side but isn't intimidating, soft and secure in his manhood. USA Today cites Pedro Pascal as an example of a real-life actor who could be baby girl. Brenna Hart on Urban Dictionary also describes it as a male character who does questionable things but is so sad and pathetic you can't help but love them. These definitions make it seem like baby girl is a pre-existing character trait. This is sometimes the case, but more often than not, fans will turn a character into a baby girl. To baby girlify a character, a male character, or baby girlification, means to strip them of power and their dominance over women and feminine people through associating them with feminine aesthetics. It is to play up the pathetic or submissive aspects of one character rather than to focus on the patriarchal attributes of dominance and hypermasculinity that many baby girl characters initially show. Fans can engage with these characters this way without them being a direct threat. This is how fans can engage with darker themes in fiction and characters, or even rebel against the gender and societal norms placed on non-men. This is one of my baby girls. I started by making a painting of a character I loved, and then I began decorating him with glitter, stickers, and beads. I found myself trying to relate character moments, story beats, and references to their home media in that collage. At first, I stuck to a limited color palette, and I did my best to try and imbue these with as much hyper-feminine energy and clutter to mimic the same way that people treat these characters online, with hyper-decoration and stickers and editing. Collage work also has deep historic and artistic roots that exist beyond fandom and digital aesthetics. Hannah Hawk is credited as one of the earliest collagers, as well as the inventor of the photo montage, according to the National Museum of Women in the Arts. She was a founder of Berlin Dada, a region-specific part of the larger Dada movement. The Dada art movement was created in response to World War I, specifically the horrors of large-scale death and destruction that swept across Europe. It was also a response to the emergence of widespread information and media and machine culture. Hawk presented this work at the Berlin Dada's first showcase. She was often ostracized for being the only woman of the group, and her collages, however, questioned and challenged the gender norms and expectations that arose after World War I. In this specific piece, you can see Hawk cut up pictures of her contemporaries and other male figures and pasted their heads on top of babies. Hannah Hawk, as written again by the National Museum of Women in the Arts, championed the new woman of the 20th century who was, quote, empowered by the vote, sexually emancipated, and financially liberated, end quote. A contemporary version of Hawk is Molly Soda. She is a performance and visual artist whose work is largely hosted on the internet, considered a contemporary internet perspective of Hannah Hawk. This is a collection of images from her February 2024 desktop dump. To me, these series of images evoke the collage style of teen girls in bedrooms in a similar way to how my mom and her aunts collaged in their bedroom walls, where I learned how to decorate my items and spaces to express interests. In my studio practice, I'm not collaging entire images, however. Rather, I collage small moments and textures to create larger moments that are built up over many layers of glittery stars and pop cultural icons like Hello Kitty and Snoopy. This is a style of collage that is found in many spaces online, but especially in the K-pop community. I'm not particularly a part of it, but they often take small pictures of different band members or idols and decorate them with stickers and small beads or charms. They're often attached to keychains or a way to display them for others to see. This is an interesting component of the ritual of displaying, not just having. This is a style of art called jelly art. I provide so many artists with different references to what I'm doing to provide a digital context to what I'm doing. This is very common practice, and it's very grounded in the internet. This is called jelly art or jelly style. It is a digital style of drawing that takes a male character or historical figure and exaggerates their features to appear hyper-feminine, and it's marked by specific mouth and lip piercings, very detailed eyes and mouth, as well as feminine accessories. My goal with my own work is not to exaggerate features like jelly style, but to accessorize and decorate in a similar way, and in a similar color palette. The specific characters also, too, speak on digital culture and digital critique of gender. Lieutenant Simon Ghost Riley from the iconic franchise Call of Duty is an interesting baby girl case, as the treatment of this character in many fandoms called a lot of behaviors into critique. Edits set to music of Ghost, as well as fan art and fan fiction, went viral on TikTok in the Modern Warfare 2 remake released in 2021. This influx of fandom activity attracted non-men to the game who labeled Ghost as baby girl. This angered a base male player, this angered male players of the game who were a base group that played the game, who felt other fans were overly sexualizing this character and not interacting with Call of Duty in a genuine manner, which was very ironic for male players to say this, as they've been doing this to female characters for many years. Ultimately, baby girlification became an outlet for non-male fans to experiment with the bounds of masculinity, as well as distribute power and sexualization to non-female characters. It was also a way to collage ideas and aesthetics, as well as decorate and display characters to showcase to other people engaging in fandom. This is a continuation of my baby girl series. I'm complicating the bead garland and allowing it to sit over the painting. I've also localized the color more, opting for trying to find a color that matches the character or the game they are from, rather than the hyper pink and purple palette. These to me are less about feminization and more about the care and fervor that many fans feel when working on media-based projects. The baby girls also have an important time component. Each layer of stickers or glitter represents time taken to organize and plan the layers and then stick them down. This also represents conceptual layers of the internet, as many trends and in-jokes are built through layers over time. This is all appreciation-based, and it's an intense passion for the thing I and many others love. I consider these indirect self-portraits as I use them as identifiers in the same way I might use a photo online. I can connect through these characters and treat them as an extension of myself. In the most recent baby girl, I'm including more physical objects like the Smiskies and Sunny Angels, cementing this piece deeper into the current year with current trends and micro-trends. While I'm not always conscious of thinking about my own gender while making these works, these baby girls are ultimately a contemplation on the spectrum of male and female, of gendered items, and how gender operates in fan spaces. A more widespread view of gender online can be seen in the concept of just a girl. Alex Quicho describes this type of meme, of internet speak, as the girl meme. I can't believe my actions have consequences. I'm literally just a girl. She says that she doesn't enjoy a view of womanhood or girlhood that includes a default helplessness or passivity. She says on the New Models podcast, quote, "You perform a fragility or innocence, and that removes you from any kind of responsibility. I really like this idea that it was a bit knowing, like doe-eyed, but kind of glancing off to the side, but knowingly about it." I've also seen and viewed girl meme through the lens of frustration. I am just a girl speaks to pre-decided societal norms that many women, while they're capable, a girl is not. Girl is helpless and unable to fend for herself. I can't believe my actions have consequences, or I'm literally just a girl, becomes backtalk. No one treats girl, capital G, like she's capable of having responsibilities or nuanced thoughts. Why are you disappointed or frustrated in me? I thought I was just a girl. I enjoy this use of girl meme, and I've used it myself when shrugging off responsibilities or venting with friends. However, just a girl and girl meme inevitably warped into something less nuanced, as is in the case of many online spaces. It shifted into girl math and boyfriend big boy jobs while describing your fine arts degree as coloring. While this is a frustrating watch, and it makes me roll my eyes at times, I don't believe this is setting feminism back, like some critics claim, but I believe the frustrations with gender norms and how they are depicted visually have been described and explored with more care and nuance. There are older frustrations with gender, specifically with the perception of the female body, that have become landmark debates where girl meme has fallen short. Born Sexy Yesterday is a media trope that was brought into awareness partially through Pop Culture Detective's essay video on the subject. This trope describes a woman who is mentally a child but physically an adult. She often lacks social skills or is unaware of the rules of society at large, specifically and importantly when it comes to her own body or human sexuality. The most infamous example is Lilu from Fifth Element, who babbles and meanders around like a child but undresses in front of men because she does not know about privacy and is completely unaware that she's sexy. She and other Born Sexy Yesterday characters are dangerously naive and still sexualized for the male gaze. This ultimately speaks to a subconscious general masculine insecurity, that a woman who is powerful and mentally sound than him. My personal frustrations with my own body and how people perceive me and treat me can be summarized by Born Sexy Yesterday. I do not have control over my body, and I don't have any control over how people perceive me, despite what I wear or how I act. I am rendered helpless. The billboard of this body in this painting was painted without a reference. She's idealized and imaginary as a body. This acrylic painting appropriates the New Vegas landscape to add a new layer to this conversation in regards to gender and video games. Ultimately, even in an attempt to escape, you cannot totally escape yourself in RPGs or the bounds of gender. These two paintings then create a spectrum about gender. While both display frustration, one is more lighthearted and you can laugh along with it. The other displays a type of dread and a lack of control that is harder to hide behind memes. As I mentioned earlier, an avatar could be used to express yourself and acts as an identifier online that you are allowed to then hide in. In her manifesto, Glitch Feminism, Legacy Russell explores gender online and how the glitch rebels and expands upon third and fourth wave feminism to create a new intersectional and cyberfeminism, where online avatars are extensions of ourselves. Avatar then becomes a way to expand our own definition of ourselves, as well as try on different personalities or appearances to see what fits best. This manifesto also continually argues the case to describe the digital as away from keyboard, or AFK, instead of IRL, in real life. Applying this concept to an avatar, it's not uncommon for people to identify more with their avatar than their actual appearance, as you can control and edit an avatar's appearance. An avatar becomes a manifestation of the internal appearance, and it can be a way to express how you see yourself. What is the difference between my avatar and me, except that one is digital and able to explore other realms, and one is physical and is only able to operate on one plane? Photographer Robbie Cooper compares players with their avatars more directly by creating portraits of each and displaying them side by side. The title of each piece depicts all information about the avatar and about the player. Name, Elizabeth Brown, born 1980. Occupation, Junior Network System Administrator. Location, St. Louis, Missouri, USA. Average hours per game per week in game, 8. Avatar name, Talia. Avatar created, 2004. Game played, Hero's Journey. Character type, Gear Knight, Wizard. Special ability, Godlike powers. An avatar becomes a way to explore the digital world, or even in online spaces, but they are, like in Glitch Feminism, an expansion of ourselves, not a different person entirely. Even a character or avatar who you use to make a violent or selfish decision is still a part of you, even if you don't choose to act like that away from the keyboard. This doesn't mean it comes with unlimited choices. Character creation menus in games are often very limited and are even limited within specific choices for each gender. When I was going through the menus of Elder Scrolls V Skyrim to pull references for character customization paintings, I realized my female avatar came preloaded with eyeliner and I could not remove it. Who Are You is a 10-minute video showing as I create a new avatar to play Skyrim. Collaged on top of the projection are different paintings of myself. These paintings were made over the course of my second and third year. I experimented with color palettes and appropriated video game HUD systems again. These paintings of myself exist outside of the bounds of menu options and even the bounds of a 4-squared boundary of a painting. The other projection I show in my thesis exhibition is another variation of the same concept. Here, instead of overlapping the projection onto one of the paintings, I've created space for the painting and the projection to coexist on the same plane. This projection is from Fallout New Vegas, a similar game engine to Skyrim, which means that it plays almost the same. The menus displayed here on the right, Fallen Angel, Little Devil, Seductress, etc., are for hair and can be read as gendered as well. The painting at the center is purposely made in a different color scheme and style than the rest of the piece. This color scheme is what I used to make some of the other portraits from Who Are You, the sister projection. Repetition and rumination on video game imagery led me to seek out a process of art making directly tied with those processes that I was drawn to. This would lead to a period of experimentation with printmaking, and specifically the jelly plate transfer printing. This process utilizes a plate of silicone, acrylic paint, and a printed image to essentially create an image transfer. The longest wait time in this form of printing is waiting for the layers of paint to dry, which usually takes about 15 minutes. Because of this, jelly printing moves very fast, and I was able to make multiple versions of the same image over and over and over again. When you work with jelly printing, you lose a part of the original image. The paint might dry strange and create a new texture, or the printed image might not be strong enough to transfer successfully. This loss of information gives room for new information to emerge through the visual noise of the print. The process requires you to print on an image first. Images where you print the image twice on top of each other, running it through the printer again, are more successful, but images that are only printed once can still have information that transfers. I became fixated on trying to pull prints of the same screenshots of Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4. I did not edit them to adjust the contrast to make printing easier on myself. Instead, I wanted to preserve the original digital screenshot and attempt to translate it to physical media as purely as I could. Similarly to the baby girls, there is a massive component of time and repetition. While the layers take a short time to dry, I still have to gather imagery, print it multiple times, and hyperfixate on the process and attempt to create the best version of the print. Different color used for the prints created different variations and versions of the same image. Even when trying to recreate the image or keep the text similar, different letters were lost in different parts of the print, challenging me to try again and again. The text that I began to add would further contextualize the imagery I was using. This song, from the Ink Spot song, reads, "I don't want to set the world on fire." The word world has been lost to the void behind it. The imagery that is pulled from this imagery that is used in the print is pulled from the introduction video of the original PC Fallout game from the 90s, and the song is from there too. The text that I use in my work is referential of Christopher Wool's series of work from the 90s. Here, he creates large paintings referencing mass media and advertisement. His white and black color schemes, the letters in harsh font and in all caps, and the broken sentence staggered over multiple lines creates a captivating viewing experience. The viewer is stuck reading through the sentence to fully appreciate the artwork, even when it directly confronts the viewer. The words I want to say about my own work and about my own experiences aren't as harsh or as brash as Wool's work. Text in my work is a supporting feature, but it's not exclusively about the words like in "if you" above here. My text often makes references to base media or to other media to create more layers and enhance the conceptual aspect of the piece. I needed to find a different approach to text. I began writing notes and thoughts with a white gel pen in thin lines. I also began to draw out elements of the gel prints with the white pen to move the viewer's eyes around the print, as well as create clearer details where the transfer had muddied the image. I also began spotting to other media on top of the imagery from New Vegas. "If you feel it, chase it" is a popular catchphrase from the recent Twisters movie. The thinness of the line allows it to absorb into the piece. It doesn't take away from the imagery or the visual noise and texture. It enhances and pulls out specific details. The pink prints here were a turning point in my jelly making process, as I had not before begun to work with photos of myself. The text used here is a quote from Jordan Peele's 2022 film, Nope. The film Nope follows two siblings, OJ and M, as they seek to gain photographic proof of extraterrestrials after the death of their father reveals a large alien preying on the horses of their family ranch. At one point in the film, M calls cinematographer Antlers Holtz to help them achieve an impossible shot. Antlers stops to warn her about the path she's on. He says, quote, "The stream you're chasing, the one where you end up at the top of a mountain, all lies on you. It's the dream you never wake up from," end quote. The photos I used in the prints were photos taken of me by my friends from my first semester of this program. By coincidence, the hair that I started this program with, 2 blonde strips in the front, is the exact hairstyle I will exit this program with, creating a visual full circle moment. The prints of these photos are a physical manifestation of me thinking out loud and asking if it all was worth it. I'm thinking back to the beginning of this program and the changes I and my artwork have gone through and are tallying the costs. The film Nope is also famous for the concept of a bad miracle. Is there a word for a bad miracle? In the context of the movie Nope, a bad miracle is gaining evidence that extraterrestrials have come to the planet Earth through the death of your father. It is something miraculous that comes at a high cost. My brain tumor was a bad miracle. To survive something traumatic and life-threatening and allow it to change me for the better and force me to grow as a person is a bad miracle. The medical and scientific advancements needed to remove a tumor from an 8-year-old child's head is a bad miracle. I cannot make art, and I cannot exist without my medical history. It acts as context for everything I do. It even affected the way I made art, as I found it difficult to look at myself in photos and in the mirror for references. As I got older, though, I found myself peeking and stealing glances, and I was surprised to find a young woman much older than the child I remember having the tumor. In this, one of my later jelly prints, I attempted to recreate my layering and clutter from the aesthetics from the baby girls with the jelly print and with paint and wax crayons. Hidden in this print, under many layers of wax crayon and stickers and a picture of myself, reads the text, "Despite everything, it's still you." This quote comes from the game Undertale and appears both at the beginning and the end of the game. I see this quote as something hopeful. No matter what happens to you, you are still you. My first attempts at self-portraiture were rough and awkward. This painting again draws inspiration from Nope, but from another part of the movie. At the last hour of the movie, exactly on the minute, a character asks an audience, "What if I told you, in 1 hour, you'll leave here different?" In conversation with the other piece from Nope, because of its native media, my answer about whether or not hardship is worth it is not as concrete or as satisfying. Instead, I'm interested in a different answer. Regardless of its worth, I'll still be different, and in conversation with the last jelly print, I'll still be me. Before events or social gatherings, or even just stressful moments, I wonder who I will be after them. Looking at portraiture through the lens of fandom is a little different, though. A very important conversation in fan spaces is a debate about self-insert. Self-insert is a character who is a surrogate for the author or artist. This character can be an original character that was made for the sole purpose of the author, including themselves into the media, or the self-insert character can be a blank slate. For example, some fanfiction is written in the second point of view, using you instead of the first person I or me. This directly includes the viewer. This is an example of an OC, or original character, and a canon character in the same plane by the artist Sylvian online. Even the composition of the piece in the small details includes more examples of baby girlification. The conversation around OC and self-insert in canon is similar to the conversation about the differences between art and fan art. One establishes a new, sometimes visual language with new characters and ideas, and the other is an elaboration. An interesting note in the debate about self-insert is a reaction to self-insert characters in role-playing games. As opposed to author-created self-insert, the player characters of RPGs are also blank slates, who are the most powerful, most special characters in the realm. They are also widely accepted as canon, or true characters. In Fallout New Vegas, the player character is referred to as Courier 6, sometimes just the Courier, as they were the sixth courier on a list of couriers to deliver a package in the beginning of the game. The Courier is a canon character who impacts the lore of the Fallout world at large, but their personality, their looks, and even their actions are completely up to the player. When the artist depicts their Courier, it's not seen as a Mary Sue type or a gratuitous self-insert. It's depicting a canon character, as all couriers are technically canon and true. Other character player names would be the Soul Survivor from Fallout 4, the Inquisitor from Dragon Age Inquisition, or the Dragonborn or Dovahkiin from Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. This artist here, Cheesy Cryptid, is depicting a different player character from the game, Baldur's Gate. They're showcasing their Tav, a player character. Tav is the default name for the character customization screen before the player puts their own name, a placeholder that was then taken for by the fandom and more widely used to refer to the player character. The scene here depicts the Tav's adventuring party, Astarion, Shadowheart, and Karlach, studying for a final exam. This would classify as an AU, or an alternate universe, where instead of a fantasy scenario like their base media, they're in something completely different from their home. On Tumblr, this was described to be a part of the Baldur's Gate 3 Filipino-coded college alternative universe. This work can then be seen as an expansion of representation of the artist and becomes a self-portrait in addition to fan art. This is where video games and the fan art from their fandom can act as their own medium and expansion of self-portraiture. This is my version. Patrolling the Mojave makes you wish for a pool party, which is a play on a popular line from an NPC. Instead of wishing for nuclear winter, like the character says, I've instead wished for a pool party. The style and the overall size of this piece is a reference to another pool party painting I completed in undergrad. I brought the characters from New Vegas, specifically Boone and Rex, who I travel with through in my actual playthroughs, into this pool party. This painting could be seen as self-insert, depicting my version of the Courier 6. It can also be seen as a self-portrait that appropriates video game characters and imagery and merges together onto one plane. And to me, it's both. It exists in a space where it is both fan art and fine art, and I intentionally made the lines blurry. By crossing boundaries and blurring distinctions, it has always been my intention to show how skillful and conceptually sound fan art can be, and how the style and creation of fine art can be reminiscent of contemporary spaces online. I've used more cutouts to surround the painting, this time of Miffy and Snoopy and Woodstock, to decorate the scene similarly to the baby girls. I'm using Miffy, Snoopy, and Woodstock to once again draw references to characters that are popular online and in micro and macro fashion trends and culture trends. I'm continuing to make these paintings, and the gallery spaces and walls where these paintings hang, mine. When I make a character for the games I play, I try my best to get them to look as closely to me as I possibly can. This proves to be impossible sometimes, as stated before, as many of the games I play are older and the menus are limited. The choice to keep them grounded to look similar to me, and even to choose roles and outcomes that align with my actual beliefs and morals, blur the lines between my real self and my digital self. In this, the last projection of my show, titled First Class Arizona Ranger, I have created a digital painting combining my avatar with the digital world of New Vegas that I projected onto the walls of the gallery utilizing a show-it-throw projector. I expanded the original digital drawing to fit the proportion projection ratio, but I always planned on having this image projected large onto the back wall of the gallery, the large self-portrait of myself peering out into the rest of the gallery. It was important to me that I did not print this image out. If I created a print of this digital drawing, it wouldn't be digital any longer. It would be something physical. I wanted to preserve the digital nature of this work. Using a projector got me as close as I could to touching a digital drawing. Look How Big You Are is a small acrylic and gouache painting that was painted on the screen and body of a Game Boy Advance Special. The painting on the screen depicts a self-portrait of the artist with blue bangs. I had blue bangs at the time. Surrounded by sparkles and small pink stars. The artist's gaze meets the audience with a neutral or even stormy look. The blue bangs are the only cooler toned areas of this piece, as the rest of the color choices are much warmer with pinks and maroons. I chose these purposely to contrast with the cool metallic plastic of the Game Boy. The text on the bottom part of the device body reads, "Look how big you are." The text is pink with a white center. The painting and details of this piece are simple. The emphasis instead is on the combined elements, a self-portrait on a Game Boy. This console is the same model of the first video game console I owned. My parents gave me a Game Boy Advance Special to have something to do while I waited in hospitals and in doctor's office. While I consider this work to be a painting, this art object also has three-dimensionality and could even be read as a sculpture. The Game Boy is small. It's the smallest piece of art I've worked on. I positioned it next to a large projection, which emphasizes how large the projection is and how small the console is. This is the first time I've worked on material that isn't paper or canvas. Even my cutouts, while they break the bounds of a four-sided traditional shape, they are still made on traditional painting materials like canvas and paper. Through painting on a Game Boy, I'm calling its existence into the meaning of the piece. It's holding the painting in the same way my attention was held in waiting rooms through the games I played. This painting can also be held and touched in the same way someone playing with the same console would interact with the imagery of those games. This found object could not be worked on without my brother helping me find the parts online and building the Game Boy for me to paint on. This piece was a collaborative project. It's strange to have many types of relationship based on love of media as an adult when I grew up loving media as a solitary experience. This piece, positioned closely to the large projection at the back of the gallery, is the first time I am speaking about people around me. It utilizes a one-third composition, as the main two figures are in the first third and the last third of the painting. The middle third of the painting is mostly empty, filled with a deep blue hue and purple void. The fox animatronic, Foxy, is emerging from the background of the piece. He is humming and making little noises, shown by the dum-de-dums surrounding the figure. There's text again. This time the text is handwritten instead of something more methodical like a stamp. The text in the back has been pushed back further with the use of paint washes, making it barely visible. Foxy was featured in last year's Halloween Horror Nights, which is what the painting is referencing. The painting combines multiple HUD systems from different games. The HUD systems have been altered further as they are neon pink instead of the original colors from their native games. These HUD systems follow the larger trend of my work collaging ideas and aesthetics, but also of making these games mine. I've collaged the companion cube on top of this painting to further reference companions and not being alone in a space. Lumen is also nearby in this piece, another figure surrounding me in a dark or even scary environment. At the start of a program, I attended Halloween Horror Nights alone. It was the first time I had been to a theme park alone. I found connection there, however, with strangers, and brief community as I traded horror-themed friendship bracelets with strangers as we waited in lines. One of these bracelets I still wear today, and I often think about this moment as finding community where I didn't expect it. Now in my third year, I attended Halloween Horror Nights multiple times with my dear friends, both who I knew outside of the program and who I met inside, as well as my boyfriend. Even my mom, who hates horror, offered to go with me. This painting, as well as my pool party painting, is on unstretched canvas purposefully, creating a portal to a different world that the audience can view through. The culmination of my graduate research is in this gallery show. My research is focused on the impact of video games and fan culture on my professional studio practice, which has pointed my work towards utilizing specific iconography and color, as well as a style of art that is widely practiced in fan communities online, but it's largely been focused on my experience alone in traversing these spaces. The projects I'm working on now, at the end of my time in this program, seek to include my community, both AFK and online. In my first semester of this program, my cohort member Lene Peterson sent me a song, Locals, Girls Like Us, by the Underscores with Gabby Start. We didn't know each other very well at the time, and I was very outspoken about being a diehard Swiftie, so the immediate assumption was that our music tastes would not have much overlap. But I love this song, and so did Lene. Our friendship would continue to grow based on a mutual love of media and appreciation for the digital world of making, and we would create multiple collaborations of baby girls, as well as a name to showcase our work and sell our wares at local markets, Baby Girl Factory. This collaboration very quickly became more than just a name to apply to markets with. It became an art collective that we began planning shows under. The first is, of course, Girls Like Us, based on that same song. It's an art installation that showcases the room of a young teen girl, and while this project is mostly in the conceptual stage, it requires all of the research we both have accumulated over the time in our programs. In terms of personal research that I'm conducting, I'm still actively pursuing academic venues to showcase my work. This piece of fan art that I showcased earlier was actually a part of a show at a conference that was out of state. This one's for Kaiser was a part of the Popular Arts Conference and Symposium Art Exhibition titled Speculative Futures, curated by Jillian Marie Browning. To have my work included in the show was significant to my practice, especially in finding academic spaces to discuss fan art. My artwork through the show was the center of those conversations about the intersections of art and fan art. This indicates a broader desire for fan art to be displayed and showed as a part of a larger group instead of a solitary exhibition of one artist. The preservation and anthropological studying of trends of online fan artists and online communities is of the utmost importance when AI and other digital variables seek to destabilize all art-based communities. I've also found, in my experience at least, that fan art is not as studied in academic literature as other fan activities are, like fan fiction. Fan art is a vast genre, and similarly to art history, has undergone many different styles and eras that should be documented. My work has not always been received well. However, through the strength of community, both online and AFK, I will follow in the lineage of artists who seek to instead carve out their own path instead of waiting for approval. Thank you.